covert emotional incest, and betrayal trauma. Well, as you know, covert emotional incest is something that forms when the parents break up or the couple breaks up and there's children involved, children that are an age of having the capability to produce a sense of companionship for the remaining parent or parents. The parent will, in their loss and grief and chaos and trauma, tend towards the child for support that is above that of the maternal dimension. Now, this can happen often as a case of the person just being in this place where the other person lives by way of convenience. So they take on board, by way of capture really, the adult child and begin to surrogate the adult child as a means of therapy. Of course, this is not the job of the child. But it causes a bond that is abusive and destructive on the child, adult child, children, can be more than one, who they decide to take on board or who buys into it. For many children or adult children, this can cause a form of lustful curiosity. They're now being invited into a realm of the parent's life that they've got no right to be in. They're crossing privacy boundaries, and this can produce a sense of lust because they know that the boundaries are being broken. And of course, there's a fascination that comes with that and other curiosities that are outside the invitation of children with parents. This causes the abusive side of it, where there's now an emotional form of supply being exchanged between parent and child on an intimate level. And this can involve all different kinds of emotions, sarcastic jokes, sad moments where they're critically sad together and they become one another's comforter. Usually this will be mummy's boy or the golden child, the scapegoat, and everyone will rush around to make sure the golden child's okay, and the golden child becomes so grandiose they lose their self-awareness. And I know this because I've seen it. I've seen these 20, 30, 40-year-old sons behave like infantile little children. They've been so grandiose, so exalted way beyond what's fair, to such an abusive extent. They've lost their self-awareness, and the mother's groomed them to be like this because she guaranteed that she was going to have her surrogate little husband, as it were, child husband, available to her. And this gets really psychologically twisted, because when one or the other meets a partner, be it the child or the parent meets a partner, the dynamic that's been built through the enmeshment between the parent and the son, and it's been built with lots of sensitivity and lots of trial and error and lots of reward and consequence, but most of all the invasion and breaking of the rules of the maternal bond by coming into what I call, and I don't know if I've ever heard anybody say it, an extra maternal bond, like an extramarital affair. This is an extra maternal bond, all but sexual. It's a sexless, incestuous bond that's been built. And I know that treads on a lot of corns, but it's time you woke up to yourselves and got it right. A lot of these places, these tribes, these families that end up this way through chemical abuse, alcohol abuse, substance abuse and other addictions, which they justify through apparently what life has done to them, but what they forget is they're not the only ones, and people do turn their lives around. You can tell when somebody's just justifying addictions by means of being victims. That's called toxic victim mentality. And of course you'll get the flying monkeys jump on board with that. Usually they're victims themselves and toxic, and they like the habits and addictions as well. So they all stroke each other's egos and, praise each other when the supply comes in, or everybody sort of gets into a sense of manic excitement when, they're getting their fix. Like throwing a banana to a pack of monkeys or a chip to a pack of seagulls. They all just sort of get excited for a minute. And then once the chip's eaten or the banana's eaten, they all just settle down again and go mute. And fight amongst each other and tattletale on each other and backbite each other. There's no real development of anything that really should be happening, because there's no discipline. There's no male there to check the young males and their crap, and they're going to make sure of that, because once they get a taste of what it's like to not have a male that can check them around, well, it's going to be very hard to convince them that that's going to be okay, particularly when the primary male of the tribe's been pushed away by the mother and ambushed by the children under the influence of the mother and authority of the mother. And usually this causes a major fallout in the psychological development of young males when there's conflicts and the father disappears. Although I have heard that, and I don't know if it's true or not, I have to argue with it from what I've seen, that they still can develop relatively well without the father and only the mother. But I argue that because I've had 13 apprentices and the only one that made it was the one whose mother and father remained together. Something just goes missing when the parents break up. And so when the parent of the child gets a partner, the enmeshment is betrayed. And at first it's welcomed, because the sense that the parent of the child needs a partner is welcomed, but it's not welcomed with the idea of any longevity to take place at the expense of the enmeshment or the covert emotional incest. So as the parent draws closer to the partner, or the child draws closer to their partner, and it seems to be building into something substantial and significant, that's when you'll see the betrayal trauma start to manifest. Because there's a sense of violation, there's a sense of letdown as the intimacy shifts from parent-child to child-partner, parent-partner. And so underneath there's this trauma starting to build, because they don't know how to shut down what they started. There's no communication as to, we can't be like this anymore. It's an abandonment. So there's an abandonment, there's betrayal trauma, there's confusion, and all these other psychological flaws that take place via the one or the other trying to break away from or moving away from the domestic enmeshment, the extramarital bond. And this leads to tremendous psychological conflict and collapse. In some cases, collapse. It can lead to tantrums, jealousy, rage, oppositional behavior, objections to the new partner, vandalism of the new partner's reputation, delusions, trying to sabotage and jettison the new partner, lies. But there's abandonment and betrayal trauma, and they don't know how to undo it. It just manifests, and it ends up in a psychological collapse. Terrible. And that's why enmeshment really never does get undone. It just ruins everything and everyone that comes into it.